Welcome to our second quarter client presentation for Note Advisors. This quarter, we're focusing on making your money work for you. As we are Note Advisors, our core values are intimacy, action, and development. So we hope through this video series, you learn a few things about us, and we put some good materials out there for you as well. And here's our team. If you don't know who we are, here's some lovely photos of us. And so you might have watched this short video that Colten and our newest addition, Mario, put together. And they kind of learned about, they have $100. They didn't know what to do with their beer money. There are two young guys on the team. And so today we're going to go through some of the ideas that they have or some opportunities through fixed income. With the market and the increase in interest rates lately, people have kind of turned more towards fixed income. It's earned a greater rate of return through interest and coupons. So I think they're going to kind of decide which is the best way to spend their $100 through a variety of different tools.
All right. So what is fixed income? Fixed income is a type of investment security that pays the investor a fixed amount on a fixed schedule. There are some that don't have a fixed schedule, but they're paying sort of an agreed upon or fixed, sometimes variable rate. These fixed schedules, they can vary anywhere from usually months, they can stretch out years, and there's agreed upon coupon or interest rate that is paid out to the investor. They're not necessarily all risk-free, but they are a means of attempting to preserve your capital. We like to think of that interest rate sort of as a rent payment that you're receiving for holding these securities. Now, I'm going to hop over to Mario, who's going to start leading the way into some of the different tools in the fixed income industry.
Yeah, thanks, Colten. Yeah, chances are if you had a conversation with us in the past year or definitely within 2023, the topic of money market funds have most likely made its way into our conversation. And as we explain to our clients, these money market funds, at least that we use for our clients, are a type of mutual fund, right? So think of it as one investment that's made up of a bunch of different investments. So we get that diversification. In the case of money market funds, they're made up of everything from commercial paper to CDs, treasury securities, and other types of cash equivalents. So just like any investment, there's some level of risk. Money markets are one of the lowest on the totem pole. So it's a great option for short-term cash or emergency funds. The funds that we use, they have kind of two differentiators, right? They're daily liquid and they have a daily rate. So the daily liquidity is great for, like I just said, the emergency funds. If you need cash on short notice, it's a perfect product, right? We can sell it and get the cash to you back into your bank account in no time. The daily rate means that it changes all the time. So in the past year, this bode really well, right? As the Fed increases rates, the interest rates on these money market funds are tightly correlated to the Fed rate. So as the Fed increases rates, we'll get a higher increase each day. But on the reverse side, if rates start to decrease, there's no locked in rate. So that's what we're giving up. So we have this awesome liquidity that we can access at any time, but we're not locking in a rate. We're kind of at the whim of where rates are currently. And it's important to remember, kind of like Angela touched upon, this is a great tool right now. This is not going to stay forever. Just like a few years ago when money market funds really weren't earning anything. This is a tool in our toolbox that we're using right now. And a lot of clients are really taking advantage of this, which is awesome. But again, times will change. We don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know where rates will be in the future. But for right now, this is an awesome option. And then moving on, I guess from there, we'll talk about other types.
CDs, certificates of deposits. Right, a CD differs from what Mario was talking about is a money market, right? This is a tool where you're putting a lump sum of money into an investment, right? And you're going to be guaranteed some sort of rate of return, right? So it is historically, CDs are very popular at banks, right? You'll go to your bank now that you can get a higher interest rate. People are pretty excited. They're using this tool where it hadn't been as popular in the previous years. Really, you are putting your money in for a period of time. They differ anywhere from, I think today, someone for 3 months, and they can go on 5 years, so they can really go out for a period of time. As an investor, you have to remember that you're willing to put that money there and earmark it for a later purchase or in your long-term bucket versus perhaps using it as a more liquid investment, similar to what Mario was talking about earlier. You can buy them with us. So because interest rates have gone up, we've seen CD rates really drastically go up pretty quickly, and they're offered by a variety of institutions. So when you buy CDs, some people do ladder them. It's important to think about diversification at the same time. So, right, you do have the option to buy some online. We've seen some online banks and also some more regional or some national banks have them as well. So you can always go out there. A lot of banks or institutions have new money rates. They're called teaser rates, where if you transfer some money to them, you're going to get a higher rate of return as a new customer. So those are always out there for you. What's one of the downfalls, right? If you need to break that CD, you're going to give up either some simple interest, sometimes it's 6 months simple interest, or some really will say, oh, sorry, we're not going to pay you the interest. So you always want to know what your terms are when you take out a CD. Some other things, a lot of banks will automatically renew CDs at a lower rate. So it's also good to be on top of how long have you had that CD. Typically, they'll give you about a 30-day period to respond, but you really want to make sure that you're paying attention to the monies that you put in there. But honestly, if you have some cash that you have earmarked maybe for a rainy day or a later purchase, CDs right now have been a really nice alternative.
And one of the many options here is just a general bond, right? So I think at a high level, as Angela started off saying, the interesting thing about us as practitioners and planners is for, the last decade, we really had the option of cash earning nothing or stock market, right? If we wanted to earn anything. And when I say stock market, could it be the stock or bond markets? And so that's why we've been getting a lot of these questions lately and, from clients now that we have this kind of interest rate environment that we haven't seen in quite some time. So some of these tools that Colten mentioned have been there and for very long times, we just weren't prudent to use because, they weren't paying any interest. And so when we think of bonds, right, the old adage we always used to say to our clients is, with stocks, you're an owner, and with bonds, you're a loaner, right? So think of a bond as you're taking your money and you're buying a bond and you're loaning that money to either the U.S. government or a corporation, right? So what do you get in return for that, right? You get a series of coupon payments or what should be regular equal payments for that. And that's really all a bond is. It's just a debt security that's secured by either a corporation or the government. They are considered to be less risky than, say, stocks, right? Because if that corporation or that government municipality goes bankrupt, the bondholder is first in line to be repaid, right? Versus the owner, the stockholder is technically at risk for the entire amount, right? They're not owed anything back. And so now that we've seen interest rates come up, we're starting to see both government bonds and corporate bonds to some degree start to pay some much higher interest rates. And to Angela's point on CDs, a lot of clients will ask us this. There's no perfect solution here, right? All of these things we're talking about have merit and have a place in somebody's portfolio. And it's not like put all your money in bonds or put all your money in money market funds or put them all in CDs. I'll talk next on treasury bills, right? layering in a piece of all of these helps give diversification, right? We've all heard of diversification, and we think of it like more in the stock market, US versus international, large cap versus small cap. But now we need to talk about interest rate diversification, right? And do we take a variable rate in the money markets that Mario was talking about, or do we take a fixed rate in the CDs that Angela was talking about? The answer is probably both, right? We don't know when rates are going to stop rising. And so we should have exposure to probably multiple different options. Then the next most popular, the most questions we get, at least I get, is treasury bills. And what is a T-bill? And it's just simply, unlike a bond that's issued by a corporation, is a treasury bill or a T-bill is issued by the U.S. government. And I was jokingly saying in the past couple of weeks, as long as the Congress raises the debt limit and they don't default on their debt, it's a pretty risk-free investment, right? Unlike a corporation, which can go bankrupt and can file for bankruptcy, and you can cite multiple examples of that, as long as the U.S. government continues to have the ability to raise revenue through the collection of taxes, these are considered a pretty safe investment, right? We may have heard of something called like the risk-free rate. And again, over the past decade, these rates have been near zero. I was looking for somebody today, and a 90-day treasury bill was around 5.2%, right? And so as the Fed comes out and you see there, where do these rates come from? They're really linked to the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve's interest rate environment. So as we all know, over the last 6 to 12 months, the Fed has continually raised rates at a pretty aggressive clip, mainly to combat inflation, right? As we came out of 2020 into 2021 and out of a 7 to 10 year interest rate environment, which was at rock bottom, there was no surprise we had an inflationary environment. So how do we combat that? By raising interest rates, by raising the cost of borrowing money. The benefit to that, to us as investors, is we can now take money that was most likely over the last 5 to 10 years sitting in cash, earning very little to nothing, or maybe you went out and bought a 2 to a 5 year CD and you got 1% or 1.5%. You can now have your money start to work for you. And that was really one of the main themes of this talk was have your money start to make you money without a significant amount of risk, right? That old saying I said before, cash earning zero or risk of the stock market. So treasury bills have been a good way to fix rates, like CDs that Angela had said, that you can buy in at usually 90 to, up to 12-month durations. You can also get treasury bonds that are up to 30 years in duration, right? So right now, the yield curve is very much on the short end, 90 to 180 days. There really isn't much of a reason to go out much past that because the rates start to drop after that. So these have been a good tool for people to get into on a relatively risk-free basis.
Yeah. And so kind of to conclude, if you missed our video, the joke was, Colten and I had some beer money and we wanted to, grow it, maybe to see if we're just getting draft beer or if we're going to save up and get craft beer or even one day get a keg. So we put our heads together and we really just decided on money markets because, we were indecisive and basically we weren't sure if we wanted beer in a week or if we wanted it in a month. So the money market gave us the best opportunity on that front, at least for liquidity.
And needless to say that money lasted in the account no longer than a day, and we did not get more expensive beer.
Yeah, so the money market worked out perfectly.
Short-term bucket.
That's a good point. I think if anybody watching this, there's going to come a point. And then one thing I didn't mention too, along the treasury bonds, and there's a lot of different bonds out there, I bonds and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to factor in what are your goals and objectives, right? And if you've worked with us, you hear us say that ad nauseum. It's not about the next highest interest rate or stock market or bonds or T-bills. It's what are your goals and objectives, right? Because If you know you're going to need the money to put a roof on your house or buy a new car in 60 days, that daily liquid money market is going to be your best bet versus you don't have a time horizon or it's a 2-year time horizon. Well, maybe it's a 1-year CD or an 18-month CD or a 9-month treasury bill, right? So anytime you're making a decision on where to put your money, it should be to when you think you're going to need it. And that will help direct us to give guidance there, right? Because that's the main difference here, right? A checking and savings account at a bank is that money is daily liquid and it's there, it's on the bank's balance sheet and you can deposit and withdraw it on a daily basis. As you start to get into some of these other instruments, there's going to be different holding periods for that. The other thing that we monitor, which why I said before is why you want to have a little bit of all of this, because we don't know, we don't have a crystal ball, and rates have risen pretty quickly over the last 12 months. If we're going to make a guess, we think, all right, they might tick up a little bit higher as if through the rest of this year and into next year. So that also leads towards those daily liquid money market funds because that rate can tick up with rising interest rates. The flip side of that is it can also come down. So that's why you want to have a piece in the daily liquid money markets where you can get access to a rising interest rate environment, but also layer in some fixed rate CDs and treasury bills because now you can start to lock those rates in if rates start to come down. So again, just in summary, no perfect answer. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have a conversation with us about what the best option is for the current situation, for the bucket of money that you have. We can look at, how to best utilize these different tools. And the other thing I would say, and this is not I guess if there's one thing to take away from this, and it's not an anti-bank statement, but don't let your cash sit there idle any longer, right? Having your money sit in a checking or savings account earning nothing or 0.1%, that used to be the norm. And I think we're used to that. We're numb to that. Oh yeah, we would laugh about it. Yep, not earning any money. There is some real opportunity to have the money that you have sitting in cash that's not invested in your Roth IRA, your 401k, your traditional IRA, to start to earn you some interest on a pretty risk-free basis. It's a great opportunity that we haven't seen in a long time. So we feel it's that important to at least take a look at what you're sitting in, what you have in cash, and make sure that you're putting it to work in the most effective ways. As always, anybody watching this, give us a call, shoot us an email. Happy to talk about this with anybody with any questions and look forward to it. So other than that, Angela, Colten, Mario, thank you very much.